This is Just Ask George, exploring the universe of corporate finance and capital formation for your business enterprise, with merchant banker George Lovato Jr. and your host, David Wolf. Boom. Welcome back to Just Ask George. David Wolf here with George Lovato, the head dude at BH Capital.
There we go.
LTD.
Pound to pound there.
How are you?
I'm excellent. You're sounding good today.
Thank you. I just got over, for those who, I got over the cold flu thing that's going around everywhere, so that's what George is
So
talking
that's
about.
why he sounds so good. He's
Thank you.
flushed everything out, and you're brand new again.
I'm brand new again. I've had a flush. Well, listen, we're going to talk about something that we've experienced as merchant bankers out in the field as prospects approach us with a project that they're looking for capital formation, and we encounter something we call waiting. And there's we've talked about it a lot offline,
Right.
and we have something we like to call the cost of waiting, which involves a whole lot of stuff. And really, to kick off and lay the groundwork for this particular subject matter, let's first define there is a cost when someone kickstarts a project, they're ready to form capital, and then they wait for some amount of time for a variety of reasons, which we'll dig into.
Yeah, a lot of times it's indefinable, but let's just let's talk about our process. And our process is, we measure everything, and there's a multitude of different marketing platforms that people reach us. So they may reach us by an accountant or a lawyer that's done that for years, and then our ongoing internet platform that we use, the show. As well as email broadcasting. I mean, it comes from a number of different places. And then the 25 guys like you that are out there doing their own thing and generating leads.
Yes.
So it all comes in. All that's measured. And here's a guy that may want working capital. He might have an acquisition and development project. He might need a line of credit. He might need inventory financing. He might need capital equipment financing. But for whatever, we'll call that a project. But for the purposes of this example, we'll just talk about an acquisition and development project. Okay, I think it's one that we see frequently.
Yeah.
And so he's out there for 6 months, and finally he stumbles across his lawyer, and his lawyer says, why don't you call these guys at BH Capital? I've referred them before. They've done good work, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So he winds up contacting you or another affiliate, and you have a conversation, and you start scrubbing the deal down. And it gets to the point where I start talking to him in our process. And he says, well, here, all these costs, appraisals and feasibility studies or need necessity studies, surveys, et cetera, that's too much money. Well, those are things you have to have if you've got you have to master plan. You have to create a master plan, and you need to go through the underwriting process. Okay. So he says, well, I got to pay you guys $30 or $50 or $100,000 to help me get through this and underwrite it, and then help with the master planning, and then actually take it out to market, et cetera. For $30,000, I'll do it myself. Here's what he's missing. He's already been at it 6 months. He's really gotten nowhere other than contacting us. He doesn't have the connectivity to the marketplace. He doesn't know who to talk to, and he doesn't really know what he needs. And he's still got the rest of this process to go through. He's not gotten to the point where someone has grabbed a hold of this deal and actually is underwriting it, let alone he's probably incomplete on the master planning side. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's out there shooting in the dark, and of course he still stays on our radar because we measure everything, and we sort of watch and wait, and then usually there's a point out there where he's recontacted by you, and you'll go out and say, so how's that working for you?
Yep.
And there's a certain percentage of those people that come back and realize they just washed away an entire year.
Right.
So here's one level of the cost to waiting. This is just one.
One of several, guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so let's say that to keep his doors open on this project, he's got a couple people inside that are helping him put these things together, the plan, the revenue model, the business plan, all those wonderful things, financial statements, maintaining an office, just maintaining an office for the project costs him $5,000 a month. He's actually 6 months prior to coming to us, he spent $30,000, and now this extra year he's spent another $60,000. So he spent $90,000 just to keep the lights on the project. But what has happened in that term of time is it's lost its luster, its momentum. He's shooting in the dark. He's getting a lot of no's. The
There's
project,
a memory to the project, isn't there?
Right, exactly. And the project starts to get a reputation of, that deal. Because as we always see, a lot of times you and I will talk and I'll say, Dave, did we look at this project before? Because it might be coming in through a different channel or something.
It's a very important point. I mean, more is not necessarily more. You're better off very selectively. Look, I understand they want to shop the deal, but that can be very destructive for the quality and the perception by capital markets.
Right. So he spent $90,000, okay, as opposed to paying us $30,000 and getting it done in 6 months and cut his time down by 1/3.
Right.
He's now spent that extra 66% on time and loss of luster and money and gotten nowhere.
Right. Some of it is tangible, some of it intangible. Some of the other line items, and we've talked about this as well. I mean, you've got the uncertainty of a contract that you need to maintain, a possible option on a parcel of land. I mean, the cost of materials in the case of an A&D. If you're going to do construction, you've got to dig in.
Concrete's going up, copper's going up.
Sure.
Whenever there's big construction, when you got a $25 million project, you've got a lot of raw materials. And in that 18 months, you can damn well bet that all those raw materials went up. Now, I've seen raw materials go down occasionally, but come on, over the past 10 years, from where they were 10 years ago, concrete hasn't gotten cheaper.
Well, exactly.
And neither has fuel.
These things don't tend to go down. We leave room for the possibility that we don't know which direction they'll move, which translates to risk. And what we're talking about here is we're helping to guide folks that are waiting and trying to get a deal done because they're afraid to make the investment in their balance sheet to form capital to get the project done now because they're unable to completely understand what's at risk.
So here's sort of the punchline to the story. So here's this guy in it for 18 months. He spent all this additional money.
Right.
He hasn't gotten the project done. And then he comes back. Okay.
Right.
Now, the other thing that he forgot was interest rates. Money is
the actual pure cost of money
is probably risen, And as we know now, interest rates are going up for a host of reasons. Yeah. There's some uncertainty in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. And so he now comes back and he says, let's go do this, okay? But he's been out there shopping his deal inappropriately and ineffectively. Right. And so now it's got this sort of smoky haze around it, okay, for lack of a better term. So we've got to clean that up. Now, we've got to go back and we've got to actually underwrite him, help him with his master planning, and then get him ready for market. Mm-hmm. And so now we're going to add that 90 to 180 days that it takes on big projects to put those together.
That's right.
So he's actually really extended himself out, way beyond the end of the plank. Mm-hmm. All right, and so everything has gotten more expensive. It's taken more time. He may have to pay more for the property he's trying to control. He might have to put up more earnest money. Right. The whole complexion of the deal is really different.
Absolutely.
And so there's another cost. And so what we wind up doing in most cases is when those guys do come back, we have a tendency to say, okay, let's really look at this and evaluate whether we think we can remove that smoky haze and actually keep him on track.
Yes.
And we're going to talk in another show about master planning and the underwriting process, and so that people will understand how complex that is on the simplest of requests. And in that process, with this guy, he's got to go through that, and it's very demanding. It's very, very demanding, but he's learning. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's one big difference, is that he's learning. So that when he does look at the next project, he's going to roll the tape back, so to speak, and look and say, God, I was on that deal for 2 years. And most recently, this was pretty
It's a long
interesting.
time.
You're really familiar with this. This is a sort of an anecdote that we like telling. Great client, absolutely wonderful client.
Mm-hmm.
He was buying another business. He's very successful in his business. He was out buying the other one. And he floundered for 15, 16 months
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
trying to put the capital together. And
Yeah.
finally, he threw his hands in the air, and the deal's going stale. The seller of that business is wondering when the heck it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And he winds up getting referred to us through one of our channels, and we sit down and talk to him, and it's a great project. It's a wonderful acquisition. It was structured a little lopsided, and we knew we could correct a lot of those deficiencies. But this guy, when it got to the underwriting stage, was a jewel. It was like boom, boom,
Very
boom,
responsive
boom, boom,
and right
boom.
on it.
And you know what?
Yeah.
When projects start like that, that's exactly the way they go,
You
and
love
they're
it.
successful.
Yep.
So
Yep.
within 60 days, we had him underwritten.
Okay.
We got him
Wow.
a $10 million commitment with another $5 million in standby.
Beautiful.
And we're ready to go to the closing table. And it goes to prove that when you're prepared and you're smart and you understand that this is
Mhm.
demanding,
Mm-hmm.
and if you can be responsive during that process,
Mhm.
because it's a client-dependent business,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
You can get through that.
Mhm.
And this was a guy that came prepared, and as a result, we were able to get him through it quickly.
Mm.
But he'd floundered around for months and months and months and months and months when he finally realized, I don't know what I'm doing. He had several conversations with people that we know and that we do business with. And his whole explanation and presentation on the project was so bad that they said, we're passing.
Right.
When
It
we
wasn't
got-
the quality of the project. It was the way it was wrapped by him. so to
Exactly.
speak.
And the structure was
And the
lopsided,
structure,
like
yeah.
I said.
Yeah, there's some.
So we
yeah.
cleaned up the structure. We knew exactly,
Yeah.
where to put the counterbalances and
Yeah.
weights.
Yep.
And bingo.
Yeah.
And he said,
Yeah.
this is so strange. He says, I can't believe it happened so fast.
Right.
But it proves the point that
Right.
that
Yeah.
there was a cost, and that we did save him time in the end. We did get that smoky haze off it. We were
Right.
able
In
to
this case, you were
restructure it.
able to.
Yeah.
And here was a guy that understood.
But
he
he's
knew-
not the
finally
guy
got
that
there.
went out there, did
I
it
see.
himself. But he's an example of a guy that floundered around for months and months and months.
So that behavior was there,
Mhm.
but he finally knew what he didn't know. He came to
Yeah,
it, but
yeah.
he had to go through that process. And
Yeah.
sometimes that happens too. We see that. There's still a cost to it,
And
but
so
at least he got through it.
I'll say it again. You got the cost to keep your doors open
Yep.
on your project.
Yep.
You've got all those other third-party costs,
Right.
appraisals, all those wonderful things. So you're just going to have to absorb that.
Yep.
But believing that you know something that you really don't know,
Mm-hmm.
and believing that you can just pick up the phone or get on the internet and find money.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
one of the most that's one of the most incredible things
Right.
about the internet and capital formation.
Right.
People will
Right.
sit there and do searches, and as we know,
Right.
we measure everything. We keep track of the bad guys, and
Right.
we've got our own database about
Right.
that. They'll stumble across the bad guys. They'll start to do business with the bad guys. They'll get burned by the bad guys. The bad guys won't take them anywhere, but they found them on the internet, so they must be good.
Right.
And
Right.
it's so misleading. This is still a relationship business. There's still a lot of technical aspects to the way a transaction is viewed and evaluated and analyzed and prepared for underwriting.
That's right.
And so as a result,
Yeah.
not everything on the internet is true, number one.
Right.
And number two, if you think that that's your savoir of just going out and searching, you're wrong.
Well, it's not like shopping on eBay. I mean, the internet has introduced this sort of transparency, and I think there's a consumer mentality.
That's a good
and
one,
it
yeah.
takes out all of the expertise. I mean, it's not like shopping retail, guys. You gotta
Exactly.
you have to really be working with people that know what they're doing and have connectivity to the capital markets in a way that there's just no way they can do that through
You
the internet.
can't do brain surgery on yourself.
I've
There
tried
it
that
is.
a few times, and look where it got me. George, another good one.
Hey,
Thank
man,
you,
another great show.
We are at, of course, www.bhcapitalltd.com for more information, the
Right.
blog, information about
Just Ask George,
Just Ask
BH
George,
Capital,
BH Capital,
Dave, me, the universe, and
the entire world. As they say it in London. Anyway, we'll see. Till next time, we'll see you.
right on.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.
For more information about George Lovato Jr. and BH Capital, visit bhcapitalltd.com. Check out more episodes of Just Ask George at justaskgeorgeradio.com. Just Ask George is produced by Steve Garth and is a production of BH Capital Ltd. All rights reserved.